Saint Timothy, was born 17 AD in Lystra, Asia Minor, and was converted through the ministry of St. Paul in the year 52. St. Paul said of him, "I have no one like him, due to his devotion to the faith." St. Timothy was ordained the first bishop of Ephesus and served there for 15 years. The end of his service came when he was martyred by a mob of pagan worshippers during the immoral festival of Catagogion. St. Timothy tried to stop a procession honoring the goddess Diana by preaching the gospel. Unfortunately, the pagans did not receive this well and beat him, dragged him through the streets, and stoned him to death. He died AD 97 in Ephesus.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Steven. You know what I think is the most amazing thing?
What?
And I think one of us makes a mention of this, probably me mostly.
Okay.
I feel like every episode we've done,
Yeah.
our snaps get better and better.
Yeah.
To the point where right now that was almost effortless.
Not only that, it was dead on time.
Yeah.
That's not a phrase. It was so synced.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, we've played music together.
That's true.
And so, like...
That does help.
I mean, we also... Every episode, we play music together. But beyond this podcast...
We've done it before.
Yeah. And, like, you play bass often, even though that's
Yeah.
not necessarily your main instrument or your first instrument.
Yeah.
And then drums is my first instrument, which
Yeah,
I
true.
also rarely play. Well, you play bass a lot, but your first
Yeah.
instruments, you don't really as much.
Which is funny to think about. It's like, I actually had that conversation with someone recently.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah, bass isn't my first, and it's actually not even my best instrument.
And probably not your favorite.
No, there's parts of it that I love, but it's
Yeah.
not my favorite.
Yeah.
I think for the main reason is like it exposed a lot of things in me that I needed to get better at.
Yeah.
And so that's why I want to focus on this one.
Right.
Which
like
has
your ego.
helped me a ton. Yeah. Yeah, because you realize that no one cares about you. You know what's funny? There are people that will be like, "Oh yeah, I saw you up there playing. Are you playing guitar?" I was like, "Yeah, playing bass." Like, "Oh, I thought you were playing electric." It's like, "No, I'm playing bass." Like, "Oh." It's like,
not as good as I thought.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the guy playing electric is like, and they're
like, if you
it's
could
not
do
even
that.
on. It's not even on in the house.
So true though.
And like the bass is they're feeling it constantly. It's in their
You're
chest.
Like, oh, you played that thing.
Oh, that's why I hate you.
Well, it is funny because actually, even at church, when I was playing there
Yeah.
for a while, because we're up on a platform,
Right.
But I've for the back line for the band,
Yeah.
there's not a ton of lighting on us.
True.
And it's funny because I think I was playing consistently for like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And one of my friend's moms was like, "Oh, hey, I saw you up there playing this last Sunday." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, cool." And they're like, "Yeah, are you going to start doing that more often?" And then someone else was like, "Mom, he plays there like every week."
You said someone else.
Yeah, I
and
didn't
then
have to
someone
say
else was like, "Hey, Mom."
Yeah. It's not my mom.
That's hilarious.
Like he's up there all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like, I mean, to be fair, that's kind of like our podcast.
Yeah.
Like this is episode 19 and people are probably just now listening.
Yeah, that's crazy. Just now.
They're like, "Oh, let me figure this thing out." The computer. How do computers work?
How do computers
Let me
work?
type in how to use computer. Yeah, that would be wild. But yeah, welcome.
What?
If this is your first episode.
If it's your first one, I'm glad you're here for this one.
Yeah.
And this one specifically.
That's like a funny thing with church too. It's like we're glad to see you guys again. And if you're brand new, this one's on us. Like that's always a funny thing.
Yeah.
It's like what? But for everybody else, it's not. You gotta pull your share. I mean that's not
up.
true, but
It's true. Yeah.
it's just kind of weird. It's like out of context phrase.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So to initiate you guys that aren't this is your first time. If it's your first time here,
Raise your hand.
Let's see him. I see you. I see that hand.
All the way in the back.
Also, there's those moments where you're like, are they lying? You know, when the pastor's like, all right, if you prayed this prayer, raise your hand. It's like, I really hope that they're telling the truth, but we got to take their word for it.
Paul, that's a whole episode.
That is a whole episode.
T-shirts available now at martyrsroad.com /
pocket tees only.
Pocket tees only.
Or is it only, what is it? Pocket tees only?
/ Paul.
Paul at martyrsroad.com.
/ save 25 Paul's mom. Hashtag not my mom.
Big savings for a wonderful mother.
So make sure you put that as you're editing this episode. Put that URL right here.
It'll be right.
Because there's no way they remembered it.
No, I don't remember it.
Yeah. So just put it there as we edit. It's gonna be right here. You just put a bunch of like random letters.
This is one of those where I'm going to spend way too much time editing.
No, don't do it.
I'll do it.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going to blur your index finger.
This one?
I can just see the next 2 weeks of my life disappearing.
Oh, no. Yeah, so for all those of you in the back of the internet, welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome to the front of the internet.
Yeah.
The side. This is the side room of the
we're
internet.
kind of fringe, so I feel like it's a side.
Are we fringe?
I think people would probably put
I think
us
my
there.
eye is twitching. Does your eye ever twitch?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
For me, it means I haven't slept enough.
Thank you. I think... I always like to be grateful, regardless of...
Thank you.
Regardless of what's happening, I just choose to be grateful. I choose gratitude.
That word.
Yeah.
I choose gratitude.
Yeah, I actually heard this idea the other day that, and it's like stuck with me now. It's like if you fall asleep immediately. Have we talked about this?
Mm-mm.
So if you're a person like me, this is definitely me. That like by the time I get in bed, I like lay down and get situated, and then I'm like,
yeah,
it's like immediate.
I
sleep.
can set my time to how quickly I fall asleep.
So that actually means that you're sleep deprived.
What? Uh-oh.
So if you're a person that like,
'cause I thought it was a good thing.
No.
Oh shoot.
Well, so falling asleep immediately when you go to sleep is a good thing, the way that eating all your food at dinner time is a good thing.
Okay.
It's like that's not actually a good thing.
Because you need it, or
the food or the sleep?
Well, I mean both. Where it's like, okay, you ate all your food because you were ready for it.
No. You ate all your food and you felt good about it because
Yeah.
when you were growing up, your parents told you to eat all your food.
Oh no.
And you should, and in order, because you were a growing little boy.
Yeah. And because of the kids in Africa.
Oh, they said that too?
Yeah. Someone said it at least.
I'm sorry, Paul. Also lead with empathy.
Thank you for that.
With gratitude and empathy.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah. But no, you shouldn't finish your whole dinner just because there's food on the plate.
Oh, for sure. Because
then potentially you're overeating all the time.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are. Like if you're at Chipotle and you eat your whole meal.
So much food.
Probably like if you hadn't eaten anything that day, maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
But if that's your third meal of the day, you're probably not in a good place.
I don't think I've ever finished a Chipotle bowl in one go.
Yeah. The only way I would
lot.
say like that makes sense is if like you woke up at 5 a.m. and you ran 6 miles and then you had breakfast and it was a high protein breakfast.
Yeah.
And then you went
and did a 16-hour workout. Drinking nothing but black coffee.
I thought you were going to say black milk for some reason. I don't know.
Charcoal.
I don't know.
Activated charcoal in it.
Yeah. And then it's good for your teeth.
Yeah.
And then and then you end the day by...
Is it?
So unless you're burning like 20,000 calories a day,
yeah,
you shouldn't eat all of your Chipotle as a third meal. And you definitely shouldn't be eating Taco Bell as a fourth meal.
You shouldn't be eating Taco Bell for any meal.
Someone's listening to this right now like
eating like a Crunch Wrap
Yeah.
Supreme.
It has like 4 taco shells on it because for some reason they just
I
keep
need
adding
more.
taco shells. They're like, and now our new Supreme flippity flop pancake
Extra
shell.
taco shell.
Now with extra Doritos.
We could guarantee diarrhea.
This podcast brought to you by Taco Bell.
Sponsor us, please.
Ding.
You know what's terrible
Yo quiero
though?
Taco
And
Bell.
this will remove our sponsorship.
Oh man.
So I'll cut this
Baja
out if they
Blast.
sponsor us.
Baja Blast is the best soda.
You know what? Words to live by.
Hmm.
Make every day a Baja Blast.
Great again.
Because you never know when it'll be your Baja last.
They have to sponsor us now.
I know. Please. I did that for you.
Is that not a t-shirt?
It should be.
It absolutely should be.
I want it to be.
Brought to you by PocketTees.com. PocketTeesOnly.com.
/Martyr.
Oh yeah. Like, what is this about? Surprised by it. Someone behind you in Publix is reading the back of your shirt.
Like,
They're like, oh, that's so funny. Brought to you by Martyr. Huh? Not Martyr's Row.
no.
Oh, they run out. They steal
I
their
want to do a
food.
limited edition for this pocket tee. Where it comes with like a little keychain that fits in the pocket, and it's a tiny little Baja Blast cup.
But it's connected so it doesn't come out.
yeah.
But you think
And it's
it
only a
does.
limited run.
Okay.
We
You
can only
can't
make
wash it.
we can only make 3 of them.
Yeah, so if you're one of those 3 lucky people,
Congrats.
let us know. You're
Yeah.
welcome. And we're sorry.
You know what's funny? I was gonna ask you a question about the 90s,
Okay.
but I like where we went much better.
Yeah, but that is the 90s.
I know, and that's why I was like, we actually kind of went there.
Well, you could have just asked it because we set it up.
I know, but we just kept going. So I
No,
was like,
ask it.
Okay.
What's your 90s question?
So
Also, if this is your first time, this is what we're here for.
this is what we do. Well, this is what we do right now,
Yeah, we'll do something else later.
and it'll also be cool.
And you can come with us.
Come with us.
That's kind of a little bit of what we'll do later.
later. That's the one.
And you'll see.
A lot of pocket tees.
And no chocolate. Oh, maybe we could put the chocolate, like put a chocolate bar in your pocket
Oh yeah.
and then say like wash before you wear. And then it's just like chocolate
just
all over the shirt.
It's part of the art.
Yeah, you have to wash it first. It just stains all in the pocket. But that's like part of the design.
It ruins your entire load of laundry.
That's like a Banksy t-shirt.
That's so true. Actually, you know, people would probably pay a lot for that art.
Banksy, if you're watching, you're welcome.
Sponsor us.
Hashtag you're welcome. Taco Bell.
You can design a pocket T-shirt for
So
us.
90s. Yo quiero
Yeah.
Taco Bell.
Live
Remember
Mas.
that? Live Moss. That was later.
Yeah, it was
later
later.
campaign.
Yeah, that's new Bell, not old Bell.
What kind of dog was it? Chihuahua.
Yeah, that's right.
Spiky ears.
Yeah.
I wanted to say like wiener dog, but not
You know,
that.
so because I was watching this before we started recording, before I came here.
Okay.
My roommate was telling me about this movie that he loved growing up.
Okay.
And he's like, I started watching it the other day and it's really bad. And I was like, let's watch it. Because I love terrible movies.
Oh, okay. Like not like bad for your soul.
No, just like bad. Like it's
Just like a bad
not
movie.
a good movie. Yeah.
Oh, that's the best.
And I was like, these are my favorite.
Yeah. What's one movie that you saw completely by yourself that you promise is the best movie ever made? But as soon as you told someone else, they were like, what?
It's like, no, just listen to me.
It's the best movie I've ever seen. Or worse, you were like, oh, we've got to watch this movie. And you watch it with someone else.
Oh, yeah,
And you go, this is not a good movie.
It's terrible.
I must have been sleep deprived, eating Taco Bell, drinking Baja Blast in a chocolate covered t-shirt,
You know, okay, I'm trying to
drinking charcoal milk after a 6-hour run.
eating a flippity flop crunch with 17 taco shells.
You can't even find the meat. It's just all crunch.
It's just crunch. Nothing but crunch.
But it's Taco Bell, so it's all soggy.
Even the
Even though it's 17
So-
hard shell tacos.
I haven't eaten Taco Bell in probably 10 years.
Don't do it.
But here's the thing.
Okay.
A couple
gonna
weeks
do it
ago.
tonight?
No, a couple weeks ago, my sisters and one of her friends were visiting.
You said 10. I promise you said 17, but that's how many taco shells. Go ahead.
That's how many are in the Soggy Crunch Supreme.
So your sister's friend was visiting.
Yeah, well, and my sisters.
Okay.
With the friends.
She's not important.
No.
So
well, she's the one who pressured me.
Oh, got it.
Well, they're like, oh,
sister's
we
friend
need
or sister
sister.
To hang out with your sister's friend.
No, to eat Taco Bell.
Gotcha. Hi, sister's friend.
And they're like, oh, like we need Taco Bell, and I was like,
was she born in the 90s?
96, yeah.
Oh. Moment of silence. 96. That was an Olympic year.
That was also, I think, the last of the millennials.
It was also Charlie Brown. Nope. Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I watched that because in
Michael.
96 I was 6 years old.
That's crazy. I was 2.
You were also 6?
I was 94. I was 2 years old then in 96.
So your sister's friend made you eat Taco Bell?
No, my sister did. Her friend was just with us in the car.
Okay, innocent bystander.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she also ate Taco Bell.
Did you eat it in the car?
Well, here's the thing. We got up there and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll break my streak. And then I looked at the menu. I was like, that looks disgusting.
Yeah, it's gross.
And I was like,
brought to you by Taco Bell.
Sponsored by. People love it, just not me.
Yeah.
But I do for money.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a go. Then I saw it and I was like, nah, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So they went ahead and ordered. I also have this fear of drive-thrus.
Okay.
So like I just can't do them. So I made them order for me.
You can't do drive-thrus in general.
I hate it.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's
do you
the
feel
pressure.
trapped?
I feel like it's just the pressure of like, what do you want? And I know I can be like, give me a minute. But in my head, I'm like, they hate me.
Dude, you can pre-order everything on...
I just like to go in. That's when I like to banter.
Do you also use cash?
Sometimes. Am I also 85 years old?
Wait.
Good chance.
Do you also use change? Do you bring a jar of change and you count it out for them?
Back in my day, there's 5 cents.
And it's all in your pocket, but your shirt's like weighed down by the
heavy pocket tee.
Yeah.
Can we make
heavy
a pocket tee
tees.
that's the pocket's already
It's
worn out?
full of pennies.
All the change.
Well, Donald Trump got rid of the penny, so we can just put them all in.
They
our
actually got rid of
pocket
the
tees.
penny.
That's who knows? He's
I think
getting
we
rid
should.
of everything.
I think we should get rid of everything except for the quarter.
Yeah, just
But
everything
I
in
think,
general.
I think we need to add some bills. I was talking to my brother about this.
Okay.
Because they were
Wait,
talking
what
about
happened to Taco Bell?
Oh yeah, sorry. You got me on American currency here.
Oh boy, that's another
I'll
episode.
come back to that. I just think we should add some bills, like a $15 or $25 bill, because that would make my life so much easier.
What? Just use a credit card or
No.
a debit card.
No, I like cash.
Or like Cash App.
I use credit cards too, but it's also nice to be like, I just have $15 right here,
That's true.
and it's one bill.
Huh. You're saying because things don't cost $5 or $10, they cost $15.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense.
Or this thing's like
or it's like 12.
Yeah. Or it's like,
Yeah.
here's this thing for $24.99. It's like, just take a $25 bill. Let's call it a day.
But it's not $25.
No, it'll be more because of tax.
Yeah, it'd be like 26.
That's another thing we need to
something.
figure out.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Absorb the tax.
Taco Bell.
Yeah, Taco Bell.
They ordered food, and I could just smell in the car, and I was like, I'm glad I didn't order any food.
Oh, you didn't?
Mm,
Did you at least get a Baja Blast?
no.
Okay.
I was like, no, I'm good.
There's something about...
Well, so my sister was like, eat it, take a bite, and I was like, no,
Eat it.
I'm good. She's like, eat it. It was like that.
Listen to the crunch.
It was like that scene from Matilda with the chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Eat it.
Was Matilda the movie you guys watched?
No.
Okay.
Well, then, so I was like, okay, fine, I'll take a bite. And I was just like holding it up to my face, and I was like, I don't want this in my mouth. Like just the smell of it.
Yeah.
I could just smell my childhood memories of just hurled over a toilet.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I can't do it. She's like, don't be a baby, just take a bite. So then I crumbled to peer pressure very quickly. So I took a bite, and I was like, I don't think I can swallow this.
You spit it out?
I came this close to spitting it out.
What, did it have beans in it?
No, I don't know what it was. It was like that meat stuff they call it. I don't think they can call
Ground
it meat.
beef.
Maybe.
It's slop.
It had the appearance of ground beef.
Yikes.
So yeah.
What was the movie?
Oh, we didn't see a movie.
No, I know, but you talked about your friend.
Oh yeah,
that you wanted to watch it. We've talked about 3 different
we've
things.
gone a lot of places.
If this is your first episode, this is actually like as like our life in real time.
This is our real conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
And
normally do that here, but
if
this
you
is,
wonder
like,
if I'm
pretty
self-diagnosed ADHD, yes. And
that doesn't mean anything.
No, but I go on to prove it every time I talk.
So Paul's just trying to be ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Stolen valor.
Well, moment of silence.
Moment of silence.
I don't know. You can't do the Barry Bonds.
Oops. Well, yeah, so this movie was called Three Ninjas Kick Back.
I love that movie.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
I'm watching it for the first time. I'm halfway through it right now.
What's the one?
Man,
wait, you're halfway through it?
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, I had to come here to record. And we kind of just started on a whim because he was like, "Hey, have you seen this movie?" Like, no. He's like, "It's so bad, but I loved it. Let's start."
It's the second one though.
Oh, this is the second one?
Three Ninjas Kick Back.
Yeah.
That's the second one.
Oh, dang.
The first one's called
I had a
We Kicked
suspicion
First.
because it said kick. Is it really?
No.
Okay.
It's just called Three Ninjas.
Oh, that makes sense.
But it's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. For some reason in my mind, that's what their names sound like.
It kind of because the youngest kid's Tum Tum.
Tum Tum. That's
and he's
what,
always eating candy.
I almost said Tumnus.
Oh.
Pan, I hope you're not listening.
It's not for you, Diana.
Call back to our boy St. Timothy
Old
in
Tim.
the intro.
Come on, Tim.
Tim.
But
Wait, Christmas Carol? Little Timmy?
Little tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim.
Yeah.
So Tum Tum.
Tum Tum.
And then
One of the kids is Rocky.
Rocky.
The
Yeah.
other one is. I just watched it. You think I'd know?
Jimbo.
It's like Colton or something or Colt.
Oh, that actually makes sense.
Colt. Yeah.
Colt. Yeah, Colt.
Yeah.
Colt, Rocky.
Tum Tum.
It's just like a bunch of horse names.
That kid, he's got on his watch. It goes off like every 20 minutes, and he'll just run and buy a bunch of hot dogs.
What? I don't remember that.
Yeah, they were playing a softball game, and he's just like, hot dogs. And he's way too young to be playing with the rest of these kids.
But that's the great thing about 90s movies is that they just put things in that don't make any sense.
And you're like, sure. Well, also because none of the kids look Japanese at all.
No.
Their grandfather is.
Right.
Very Japanese.
Yes.
And his daughter and her husband, not at
Japanese.
all. And I was like, there's not even like a bridge. That is like, yeah, that's their grandfather.
Yeah, maybe
and
their
his
mom
genes didn't even try.
Yeah.
Like
But
his
they are
genetics were
ninjas.
like, whatever.
But
Three
they're
ninjas.
Yeah. Yeah, so they skipped a generation, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they don't look Japanese, but for some reason they're ninjas.
And also one of them can speak Japanese, but the grandfather can't.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It's weird. It's weird.
But there is a Three Ninjas, I think it's the third one, where they have to like surf from an island to another island. And there's like 100 people on surfboards.
Incredible.
It's, yeah, that's a memory I have.
But I think
But
that's
the
kind
first
of
Three Ninjas it has like a Home Alone situation.
Oh, okay.
Is that in this? That's not in this one,
There's
right?
like, they have someone try to break into the house and they do like Home Alone-esque things.
Oh, maybe that is the first one then.
But this is the second one. It's like a really quick, like aside in it.
Okay.
And it seems like it's just like a nod to something.
Oh, then it is the first one.
So it's probably the first one.
Yeah, because the first one, there's like a whole like sequence where like they get above the doors and like it's all these.
Okay, yeah, they kind of
Yeah.
like nod to it in the second one.
Okay.
That's interesting. But I think that's one thing I was going to say.
Is it
with
though? It's Three Ninjas.
I know, and I love how that's their name. They're like, who are you guys?
We're the Three Ninjas.
We're the Three Ninjas.
Hot dog time.
Oh, who's eating my good and plenties?
Oh man.
But I think when I look back to that and you see just like a different age.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm looking at this and it's like, all right, I was young during this time and like between that and the early 2000s.
Right.
But it's like, I remember the early 2000s more. But it's like, wow, like how much have things changed in such a short period of time?
Yeah.
And you think about just being young in that era. And that's what made me think of our boy Timothy.
Yeah, I
I
guess
feel like that
makes
very
sense.
loose connection.
Yeah, because I mean, Saint Timothy, we know like his time frame.
Yeah.
So I think he dies when he's like 79, 80. So he lives a pretty full
He lives
life.
pretty long. Yeah.
I don't know if he lives a full life, but he lived a long time.
A long time.
And he kind of stayed out of Jerusalem. Like he was born in
Yeah.
the Asia Minor,
Yeah.
and then he dies in Ephesus, which
Yeah.
is so he kind of is from that whole like Turkey region, kind
He
of
just
lives
kinda
there,
hung
and
out
from
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Paul goes and finds him there,
Yeah.
and then he's part of what's going on there. So
Yeah, because he was the pastor at Ephesus for a while, wasn't he?
yeah, they
Yeah.
said 15 years.
Okay. Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, so that's.
But I remember like his age was always such a big thing in Scripture.
Yeah,
It's something that Paul talks about.
which makes
And-
sense because like
yeah.
that, like it shows us that he was born around 17 AD.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he would have been half of everybody's age,
Which is crazy.
if you think about that.
Yeah.
Like if most of the guys are around the age of 30
Hmm.
in 30 AD,
Yeah.
then he's
Yeah.
15. So he's half their age.
Just a little kid.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because it makes me think. It's funny now that I can have this experience. Or
Mm.
before, when you're the young guy looking at the older people,
True.
and you're like, "Why don't they respect me? Like,
Yeah.
I think I deserve.
I get no respect.
I get no respect around you." And then now it's funny because like, oh, here I am, 30, and I meet someone who's 15. I'm like, wow, they are a kid.
So dumb.
You are stupid. But it's funny. It's like, oh, I think for me, I try to put myself in that place of like, how do I show them respect
Yeah.
for what they do know,
Yeah.
and then help guide like what they don't.
Yeah.
Because we even have young people that come and work for us with painting, and it's like, oh, you got these fresh like 18, 19-year-old kids,
Okay.
and it's like, wow, some of them think they know everything, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like that's incredible.
Which,
I
by the
love
way,
that.
Paul and I don't own a painting business together.
No.
But that would be
That would
pretty
be fun. We could if you want. I already have it started.
But Paul does have a painting business.
I do.
Because you said that, like, yeah, we bring in all these young kids.
Us.
But yeah. So, so St. Timothy, like, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
But also, we were going to mention this is like, if this is your first time, this whole thing kind of inspired off of Fox's Book of Martyrs.
Mm.
Well, Fox's Book of Martyrs kind of stops right before this episode.
Yeah. Well, it's not that it stops, but the purpose we were using it for stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. So it keeps going like pretty extensively on the early
Yeah.
church. And as John Fox was a historian,
Yes.
he kind of catalogs a lot of things. But what we wanted to do was episode to episode highlight a specific Christian who
Mhm.
died for what they believed in. Jesus Christ died on the cross, born of a virgin, resurrected on the third day, the Son of God. So in that, it's kind of cool. So what we're going to try and do is gather more information in the way that in the spirit of John Fox,
yeah.
and continue to do this in the same way that he did,
Mm-hmm.
but carry it on in that way. So all of the intros that you hear pretty much from here on out are going to be our compiled intros
Mm-hmm.
in the same feel as John Fox.
Yeah.
And some of the information we're getting from him or was
Mm-hmm.
informed by him, but we're going to put it in that concise way, like he did.
Because I think it's such a cool way to highlight somebody.
Yeah.
And especially just like, all right, let's have this brief moment where, especially people that you never heard of
Right.
or aren't very commonly named,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, let's just place them in here and recognize what they did.
Yeah. So eventually we might end up with a Martyrs Row book.
I think it's in the works, honestly.
Yeah. Because we're going to write week to week all these, every episode, adding that in. And maybe at some
Yeah.
point we'll reorder them
Mm.
based on
'Cause
when
I'd
they
love
died
to put like
or...
a chronology to it or something.
Yeah, I think John Fox was doing it based off of when they were born
I think so.
or when they were martyred.
That's what I
But that
wondered,
even
but
kinda
some of
breaks
that
up.
seems like it kind of breaks up a little bit.
It does.
Yeah.
So we might go in and decide when, like, we might even change up some of his.
Yeah.
as far as the ordering goes. But yeah, I think, this is episode 19.
Yeah.
By episode 100, we'll have 100
We'll have a lot.
logs of martyrs. And it's crazy because, martyrdom in the Christian faith starts essentially with Stephen. And then it goes all the way up until right now.
Yeah.
So you're talking about for the last
it's
2,000
one thing
years.
that's still happening.
Yeah, I mean, earlier this year,
Yeah.
we still have reports of it, of Christians being martyred in different places around this God's green earth.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a little terrifying, and it's a little unusual to us, which is kind of the reason why we wanted to do this, was kind of like remember those who actually gave up their life for what they believe.
Yeah.
Because we get to sit in a studio with no fear.
Yeah.
And talk about Jesus.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where it's easy for us to become a little more flippant with our faith because we're not under pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of why we're doing this, to kind of bring that in, to kind of jump back and remember all those who came before us, foundation, kind of like in the spirit of also like Hebrews and the Hall of Heroes and the heroes of the faith, and kind of echo that in the way that I think that the Catholic Church does well, but maybe takes it a little too far. Who was it? Saint Timothy. I do know this. This is not in the intro reading. I decided not to put this part in. But Saint Timothy is the patron saint of basically, what do you call it? Digestive.
Oh, what a
diseases.
Is that because of the wine thing?
Yes. So it's because of when Paul tells Timothy, stop drinking only water. Like drink wine for your ailment.
That's interesting.
So they assume it's something to do with the gut.
Okay.
So they assume that that's why he needs to drink wine instead of just water because of.
Interesting.
But that may not be why, because that may be an assumption.
Kind of cruel too. Like this guy had trouble digesting stuff. He can help me.
Yeah. So
like, wait, what?
if you're Catholic and you're having issues with your gut, you can pray to Saint Timothy apparently.
Or just drink some wine.
Yeah.
According to Paul.
Or pray to Jesus.
Yeah, that would be better.
And stop eating fourth meal. Stop eating Taco Bell.
No more.
Start running.
Start drinking Baja Blast.
Get more sleep so that you don't fall asleep immediately when your head hits the pillow.
Yeah.
And that's why
that's
my
really
eye was
a bad
twitching.
thing. That's really a bad thing.
It's not great. So if you're sleep deprived, it should take you, from what I've heard, it should take you somewhere between 5 to 15 minutes to fall asleep.
Oh, that sounds like it would take forever.
But then you kind of let your thoughts unwind. Because if you're a
no
person,
time for that. My eyelids are closing.
if you're like me, sometimes if I've had a really busy day and I'm go, and then I hit the pillow and I fall asleep, and then I wake up at 3 a.m. Then sometimes I'm awake for another hour and a half at 3 a.m. and I don't go back to bed till 4:30.
Yeah,
and a lot of that's because my brain didn't get
Unwind.
everything out. Yeah,
interesting.
So that's just a personal experience.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
But yeah, you're not supposed to fall asleep immediately.
I've been bragging about that for years.
Yeah, just eating. I ate every bite of my dinner. It's Paul,
I'm a growing boy.
You're not supposed to be able to do that now. Yeah, but
you didn't see how small my plate was. I had 4 peas on there.
Well, good job.
Thanks.
So to the patron.
Good job.
So to the patron Saint Timothy
of finishing your plate.
Of finishing your plate.
For there are starving kids in Asia Minor.
Cheers to you, Saint Timothy.
Cheers to Saint Timothy.
Welcome to Martyr's Row. 3, 2, 1. Let's sing a song, Paul.
Let's sing a song.
Sing a song, Mr. Piano Man.
Piano.
Do you know the song I'm singing?
Yeah. I just wanted to make it weird. For a song about a piano man, the guy with the harmonica won't shut up.
Get him out of here.
Come on, Mr. Harmonica boy.
Give me a
I
tight
love how I
nut.
said like this is good, and then I just moved it.
Yeah, that's why I was like, you good?
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm good.
I just moved it again.
Hopefully you guys can hear me.
They
They can hear.
Oops, that's too tight.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Strong-armed it.
All right, what are we singing tonight?
We're gonna find out.
From the playlist?
I've got right from the playlist.
We should go back and like pull one in and make it better
That could be fun.
on like episode
Some of those
50.
early ones. Yeah. The golden age or something.
We say early ones because we've put a lot of hours into this,
yeah.
but this is their first episode.
You guys are just here, so
This is your first time.
And
Welcome.
this is the first one you're gonna hear. In the oops.
Yeah. Hey, go back and listen.
Yeah.
Some of them are just as bad.
And some of them aren't bad.
No. And this was probably going to be good too.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Let's do it.
So I finished just have like a thing, and then we're just like we'll just riff on it.
Okay.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Are you leaving gaps?
Well, it's funny. There is a part where it changes into like a chorus section.
Okay.
So,
Do you have a hook?
yeah.
Okay. So just do it.
I love how I'm saying that, but like I did if I can remember it. It was like earlier this morning. I came up with this.
Okay.
So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen the podcast before, this is or listened to the podcast before, this is kind of our songwriting,
Yeah.
and we kind of do it around the concept of a theme song. So it kind of sits in the space of things that we talk about, but also like the theme
Yeah.
of the podcast itself. But we're essentially just writing a new song every week. And for the most part, we have either in real time written the song or have only actually thought about it the day of recording
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. So actually, probably pretty consistently
Yeah.
has been like the day of.
Usually the day of.
And that's kind of
Yeah.
intentional because it's fun for us to make the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what's fun for us too is to like play around with writing music.
And I feel like it's more organic that way too.
Yeah.
It's like the ideas that we do bring, which kind of makes it, I think, more interesting.
I mean, we could like spend hours before together writing a song
True.
and then just have a fully polished song right here. But that's not really what we're doing.
Mm. I think it kind of ruins some of the magic of it.
But also, who's writing a fully polished song every single week?
Someone who's getting paid full time for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of time.
We're not there yet.
And this is more fun.
Yeah, it is more fun.
So like, yeah, you're here. Let's do it.
And that way, when we mess up, it's like, well, we just did this just now. So
Yeah, we're just having fun.
we're just having fun here.
Let's do it.
So here we go. Thank you, John. It's been fun. But now we're done with what you wrote. Martyr's Road. You told us how, you told us who, and how they died. John, you wrote about how the martyrs that came before. But now we're out of them.
This is the part where you're making it up in real time?
Yeah.
Okay.
On Martyr's Road.
I like this concept. Is there another section to that, or that's what you have?
That's what I have.
Okay,
just
cool.
those, just like A/B sections.
Yeah. No C-section?
No C-section.
I feel like that is what what it's
what it
called,
would be.
But I don't know why. I have zero memory of any songwriter saying C-section.
C-section.
Do they just call it a D section? Like, did they just skip it?
Bridge section.
There's like A, B section, and then the bridge section. That's
Yeah.
not fair.
I think it's because we
Where's
don't
the-
want to say C-section.
That's like saying 1, B, C.
yeah.
It's like, well, you're switching categories.
It's like, no, it's C-section. That'll be on a pocket tee.
Yeah. All right, let's hit it.
Okay, you ready?
So you have kind of a first verse.
Yeah, so it's kind of I chose to make it like an ode to John.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's what the C section needs to be.
Yeah.
Like, this is a tribute.
Mesopotamia.
I need to go back and listen to that one.
I know.
In my memory,
I'm
it's
so
the
excited.
best.
It's so good. It lives well in my memory too.
So maybe we shouldn't go back and watch it.
We'll have to at some point.
Yeah, good point. We have to edit it.
Yeah.
But little
Okay.
peek behind the curtain.
Whoop.
So
Here's
why don't you
us.
take the first section
Okay.
and the hook and
Cool.
stay all the way into your mic?
I will. Yeah, I'll be right here.
Yeah.
I'll be right here the whole time.
Paul has a soft, subtle voice.
Yeah, I do.
So do that and then leave the next verse section open. I'll try and jump in.
Okay. I don't actually remember what I said in the first one, but we're going to see what happens.
Oh.
I kind of remember.
It sounded like you
Oh,
did.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. It only fell apart in the next one.
I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I had an idea, then it vanished.
It felt like you were really riding on my reaction by the time we got there.
That's probably true, actually.
I like it.
Okay, here we go. John, it's been fun. For a while. But now we're done with everything that you wrote. On Martyr's.
Just keep going.
Everything. I was like, I need
A little
another.
harsh.
I need another word.
No, I like the aggression in it. Just keep it going.
Everything.
Stay with what you have.
Okay.
Take less breaks, though.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I wanted to really make them wonder.
Or keep the same breaks, and I'll add in little pieces.
Okay.
But let's take it.
I'll try to tighten it up.
Let's see what
I'll
happens.
Try to tighten.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll just cut this sooner. John, it's been fun for a while, but now we're done with everything that you wrote. Martyr's Row, Martyr's Row. You told us who, you told us how they died. Surname Fox from the block didn't like Martin Luther, and we know it. John Fox, we're so grateful for you. We remember everyone who came before you, but right now, Martyr's Row, Martyr's Row. You told us who, you told us how they died.
C-section.
C-section. And this is a tribute to our guy John. Yeah, this is a tribute to John Fox. For your inspiration, for your inspiration, for your inspiration on how they died. Martyr's Row, Martyr's Row. You told us who, you told us how. Yeah, you told us who, you told us how they died.
3, 2, 1. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun.
We should have started this one with a long pause. Like, we just figured it out.
I think we did it.
I think we made a song. Kind of.
I love how I just unintentionally dissed him,
I know.
and then it was like, well, let's walk that back.
But there's also like, yeah, it's a tribute
Yeah,
in some ways.
I was like, I just need a word to throw in here. And the first one that
It
came to
worked.
my head, it worked. Yeah.
It felt good.
It was funny.
And from what you had, like it kind of slowly developed and got tighter.
Yeah,
And then I don't
Yeah.
know what I did. Like where you were pitch wise,
It worked,
too. I was like, this is a little in a weird spot for me.
It sits in a weird spot. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
I think part of because my vocals tend to be a lot softer. I don't like hit stuff really hard usually,
oh yeah, and
I
do.
think it kind of helps me be a little breathier.
Yeah,
So those weird spots are easier for me.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to scream everything.
Yeah. Which honestly, I've done that before, and it's fun to do, but it's not my natural go-to.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I need to do the opposite. Yeah.
We'll have to swap one week.
Yeah. Well, we kind of have. There is
Actually, we
one.
kind of did.
Yeah, there's one that you went for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I go for it.
You do, and I'm so impressed. So I just can't do that for some reason. I gotta like psych myself up.
I get that. That makes sense. But yeah. So we just kind of came off of myths.
We did. It's actually kind of nice to be on this side of it, but I do miss it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Do you myth it?
I miss it.
Oh, you just set that up. But the cool thing about that is that like you can go back and listen to basically, I guess, 4-part myth series.
Is it 5? I think.
No, I think it was 4.
Because we had like 2 build-ups before we got into the myths.
Everything's a build up with us,
That's
Paul.
so true. Start with episode 1. That builds our myth series.
Yeah.
And honestly,
If you don't,
what we're going to be talking about today kind of builds off of what we set up with myths. So that's
what we set up with
what we set up with the myths.
And listen here as we...
Is that is it Daffy Duck or is that like Bugs Bunny?
Daffy Duck. Oh, that's more Daffy Duck, you're right.
Yeah, see? That's what
Those are just quirks.
DuckTales?
I don't know why that line makes me laugh.
I don't know what it's I mean I'm assuming that's what it's from.
It's Daffy Duck. Yeah, I think he was like in an elevator with Bugs Bunny.
Makes sense.
And he's just like, so what are the things that are like
At Acme
my
headquarters.
flaws?
Oh.
Yeah. And he starts listing all these things like how terrible of a person he is.
That's awesome.
And he's just like, those are just quirks. What are you talking about?
That's awesome. That is pretty funny though.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But we kind of teased on the last episode that this episode we were potentially going to talk about
Oh yeah.
trees.
We're gonna talk about these guys.
So maybe we should what?
Knock on
Trees?
trees.
Knock on trees?
ASMR.
Yeah, so I guess we should talk about trees.
Yeah.
Kind of makes sense. That's why you're here, right?
That's why we're here.
You watched the last episode and you thought, I want to hear him talk about trees.
Like, ooh, trees sound nice.
Yeah, and then 45 minutes into this episode, you're like, I'm not sure if I want to hear trees anymore.
I didn't think someone could talk about trees for this long.
Yikes, we haven't even talked about them yet.
No, we haven't. But we're about to.
But we're not just going to talk about trees, right?
Trees.
Like, do you have a direction for us, Paul?
I do have a question
Okay.
for you.
Okay.
And
Does it have to do with trees?
It does.
Okay, good.
And
See? Are you excited?
aren't you happy now? We're doing the thing.
We're doing the thing we said we would do that you're here for to listen to.
But I do have a question.
Okay.
That pertains to trees.
Paul, I would love to hear your tree question.
Would you like to hear
I would love to hear your tree question.
my question about trees?
Yes, I would. Yes.
Well,
Yes, I would.
are trees... This is my question to you, Stephen.
Let me drag it out a little bit longer.
Watch the suspense build.
Let me stop after every word.
I love it. It's like, it's not suspenseful.
It's all a
just
build-up.
mad.
Laughter, sudden pause.
Are trees portals?
Say it again. My brain's not processing.
So let me also say this before we jump into it.
You already asked the question.
I know. But before we ask it again.
Okay.
This time with more bravado.
Gusto.
Bravado.
Bravado.
That's some bravado. Is even the topic of trees as it relates to the Bible might be surprising to people.
It's a little sticky.
They're just like, is it that big of a deal? But it's like, there's actually trees littered throughout Scripture.
Yeah, they're just thrown all over the place.
And they're everywhere. But also, like, they come in weird places, too. And so it's like, okay, so
trees
if
are
it's weird
all over
and it's in the Bible
and they're weird.
They're weird.
And they're in the Bible.
So we should probably take a look at it.
Yeah.
And so the question I have for you, which I'm going to ask very deliberately.
Okay.
With enunciation. Are Stephen Howell are trees portals?
What is maybe?
Is that your final answer? Well, let's talk about it.
Okay.
What do you got?
Are trees portals?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. Honestly, it's an interesting question that I don't know that before maybe 2020 I would have thought was a question that made any sense at all.
It's a weird question.
And to be completely honest, we've discussed this a little bit.
Yeah.
But not until right now when you asked me the question did I realize that there's a huge pop culture reference that gets us into this in a slightly different way, but also not entirely different.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Because I think before 2020, I'm not sure that I would have thought are trees portals, like, is that an option? But the truth is there are actually a ton of pop culture references for it. Like one of the ones, we've been talking about movies a lot in the last couple episodes.
Yeah, we have.
Which myths kind of get you into that a little bit. But like it makes me think of like in Hook, Tinkerbell lives in a tree.
Tinkerbell.
I don't know why I said it like that.
You were trying to say Peter Pan.
I was.
That's the source of every word I mispronounce.
Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell. She does live in a tree.
She lives in a tree.
And she's a fairy.
She is a fairy.
Which we haven't talked about at all.
But the reason I keep saying 2020 is because of a pop culture smash hit. Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Trees are a big part of that.
Yeah.
And I'm just realizing that now. Because the way they enter into the Upside Down is through a tree.
That's right.
Yeah.
At least, is that every way? Or that's one of the ways they do it. Because there's a couple portals they go through.
Yeah. To be completely honest with you, I'm getting a little weird vibes right now.
Really?
Just saying Stranger Things.
Now I am. Actually,
sorry.
As soon as you raised your hand, I was like, I kind of feel a little uneasy now too, and I'm not making that up.
No, I know I'm not either. Yeah, sorry.
Whoa, no, that's actually really interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of different things around it, and actually, like, to be completely honest, I like thriller, I like suspenseful things.
Yeah.
As soon as it turns like spiritual, which you could be like, well, that's all spiritual. It's like kind of like
there's a different level to it.
Yeah. As soon as it goes, nope, this was all what was happening on the back end of the spiritual world.
Yeah.
Then I go, okay, I'm out.
Yeah, that's not for us.
No, unless it's like it turns and it's a bunch of angels hanging out. Which that's never what happens.
No, but I feel like even then, that's still something we should be wary of.
Yeah, good point.
Because
masquerading angels.
Yeah, well, even an idea of like, well, what is it our business to participate in the heavenly realm in that way on our terms? And the answer to that is always no.
Right.
Whether it's like it might actually be angels,
yeah,
or it might not, which it usually isn't. It's like that's not for us to enter into on our terms.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in Stranger Things is they kind of get called into
Yeah.
like looking in, like going into a tree.
Yeah, I'm it's vividly playing in my head.
I know.
Yeah. Which is making it more creepy.
I know, sorry.
it's like it's like I'm watching it through my eyes right now.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the hard thing about like what we watch, like
Yeah.
movies and TV shows and stuff like that, is like that stuff sticks with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because it has a high impact, or it really what is more true is that it's typically rooted in truth.
Yeah.
Like there's a part of it that is real.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it's like, this feels weighty.
Yeah.
Not because someone came up with this and then that's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But it's kind of scary because it could be true.
I mean, that's the same thing when we're reading through the myths too.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of those where it's like they give me goosebumps when I read them.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause it's like, whoa, like that's...
Yeah. Particularly
It
wooden
sticks.
people with no souls.
That one sticks out.
Yeah, Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Pinocchio
I'm
is
a real boy.
Pinocchio is a tree.
He is a tree, literally a tree.
Huh.
And actually, with no soul. Actually, in the original book, the original Pinocchio story, he was actually taken from a magical tree. And so he was actually already talking before he was shaped into the puppet.
Oh, and didn't he have like a leaf on his nose?
I think so.
I feel like I'm remembering that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so trees as portals
Yeah.
feels like...
We kind of answered it, didn't we?
I mean, there's a pop culture answer to that.
Yeah.
And we just came out of myths that were like heavy into like what did other cultures, what were the things that were true to them, what were their memories that they passed on from generation to generation, on how they came to be, how they came to know the things that they know, how they came into existence, all of that stuff. And so like jumping off of that, I think in this episode we kind of wanted to dig back into, well, let's come at it the way we pretty much come at everything, is like starting in a biblical worldview.
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind of jumping into what's the biblical story, and then look at all of the other things.
And then let's look at everything else.
Yeah, because it was fun for a little bit in the myth space to look at everything else first and then bring in the biblical side of it.
Yeah.
Versus really where we anchor most of the time is starting from the biblical side and bringing in the other stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And then coming back to the biblical and being like, all right, so because culture kind of shapes and informs.
It's true.
In some ways it shapes and informs the metaphors we use to describe the kingdom of God or to describe things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because like even Jesus using parables, he's using examples of worldly situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that's what the parables are, is he's taking real life, real world situations and scenarios and describing it like that the kingdom of God is like this.
Yeah.
Something you've experienced.
Well, I think we see that even in Old Testament. A lot of the stories that we see there are using pop culture references or visions, not visions, visuals, to help it make sense to what it's trying to say, because that's what people understand.
Yeah.
It's in the same way, it's like when we think of, like, what you're going to be talking about, one of the most popular trees in the Bible. The tree
What's
of
the
knowledge.
most...
The most popular? It's popular.
The most popular tree. Poplar's a pretty popular tree, though.
It is a pretty popular tree.
I'm a big fan of wood.
Me too. Woodworking is one of my hobbies that I enjoy. Yeah. And I know you've done it in a professional level for a while. Yeah.
And like poplar, if you get like certain cuts of poplar, there goes all your tree.
There's all my tree.
Some cuts of poplar have like really deep shades of green and purple in them. Yeah. And it's just like it's the coolest thing. Even though it's a really soft wood and it's like kind of a cheaper, like, I guess it's more abundant, but anyways, poplar.
But it's cool.
What is the most popular tree in the Bible?
That would be ding 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 ding. The tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Is it not the fig tree?
Oh, that is another big one.
It's pretty small though.
Yeah. Well, it's a poplar. But the reason I bring that one up is because of how pop culture shapes our perspective.
Yeah.
Where it's like, where it's like we look at it and we're like, oh, well, that's an apple on the tree. It's like, oh,
Okay.
where'd you get that idea from? It's like, oh, that's from Paradise Lost.
Well, kind of.
Kind of. He got it from somewhere too.
Wait, so where is Parados?
Paradox.
Parados. When was Paradise Lost written?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Okay.
And you keep going with your thought.
Yeah. You keep going with that.
You keep going
Thought
with that.
I'm about to destroy.
I'm going to prove you wrong.
But I mean, that's a popular theme. In
we gotta
Paradise
stop
Lost.
saying that.
Yeah, we do. And
Is the apple.
Say again? Yeah, the apple. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where it's like, yeah, that's not in the Bible, but it helps us view the story.
First published in 1667.
It was a long time ago.
It was.
Before I was born.
Way before. After John Fox, though.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Little side note. About 100 years.
So what do you got about the apple?
So, in the old Latin translation, the Vulgate,
Yes.
which was Jerome,
Mm-hmm.
who actually wrote it into Latin in Bethlehem.
Yeah, that's right.
Translated
Yeah.
there. I've been in the room that he translated
That's
it.
so cool.
It's crazy.
He wasn't there.
I really want to sing Hamilton right now. I was in the room where it happened. If you remember Hamilton.
I've never seen Hamilton, actually.
Yeah, it was good. In the old Latin translation, the Hebrew word da'at. You're looking at me like, what are you trying to say right now?
That's hot.
It was translated as scientia, which looks a lot like science.
Mm.
And this is the origin of the English word science. But scientia is like SCIENTA. However, the original Latin the original Latin meaning of this word is actually knowledge and not science as we know it today. So even though the Latin translation puts it as scientia, which is where our word for science comes from, the original Hebrew is actually closer, or the original Latin meaning of this word is actually knowledge and not science.
Interesting.
So even though our word for science comes from scientia,
That's not what that
scientia
word
actually
means.
means knowledge.
Yeah.
That's interesting
That's
in and of itself.
fascinating.
Yeah. Interestingly, in Hebrew, both the word for knowledge and science share the same root word, YDA. And so does the Hebrew word for information. The Latin word scientia, its appearance in the well-known Latin phrase scientia potentia est, which means in English, knowledge is power, which comes from Proverbs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the original Hebrew for a man of knowledge is ish. It's exactly the same Hebrew word as the quality we are discussing right now. So I'm just reading this little bit. Undoubtedly, the most popular appearance of this word in the Hebrew language is found in the story of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Or in Hebrew, I'm not going to try and read that. I almost attempted it, but I'm not going to. When mentioning the quality of knowledge, we are not talking here about simply knowing things, but rather the ability to know the difference between good and evil. In popular culture, the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil was an apple. Here's what I'm getting at, Paul. However, nowhere in the Hebrew Bible will we find any reference to the specific kind of fruit from this tree. So in the Hebrew scriptures, there's no reference of a specific kind of fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The reason why the apple was chosen, in quotes, is a pure coincidence, which is based on the Latin translation of the tree name, which is in Latin, and I'm not going to read that, where the Latin word for evil, malum, appears as mali in the Vulgate. And it sounds almost the same as the Latin word for apple, malam, in Latin.
Interesting.
So the word in Latin for fruit, the word for evil in Latin sounds the same as the word for apple.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so in the Vulgate, the association is that the word for evil in the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the word evil sounds in Latin a lot like the word apple.
That's interesting.
So it's not the word fruit.
Yeah.
Instead, it's the word evil that sounds a lot like the word apple. And so those two things coincide. Yeah. Because it would be different if it was the word fruit.
Yeah, it would be.
That sounded or represented or was like adjacent to apple, but instead it's the word evil.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So it's like evil became personified or not personified, but I guess identified as an apple.
So don't eat apples.
No. Well, that's always the like Disney trope.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this evil apple.
Yeah, like take a bite of the apple.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it has to do with its color too.
Although evil is personified and presents the fruit.
Well, you think about this is more of like a psychological effect of it. You think of like the ruby red apple.
Yeah.
And it's like the color red, which can have that very like intense bloodlust type. You know what I mean? It's like,
I do, yeah.
It's got that very like aggressive tone to it.
Yeah.
And very like tempting.
It's funny that you say ruby red. I think candy red. Like candy apple
you're more of a
red.
candy guy.
That's true. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Like a candied apple. You know what I mean?
You're like, just cover it in caramel.
No, like a candied apple. It's like red. It's like a cherry candied apple.
Those are very red.
Yeah, they're very red.
Yeah.
They're like bright and
like unnaturally.
Yeah.
Like red
like
40,
evil.
just like all of it.
Yeah, all the stuff you can't eat.
All the red 40.
Everywhere else in the world except for the U.S. The only place you can get a real candied apple.
Yeah, in the land of freedom.
Land of freedom, land of candied apples.
Land of red 40 and candied apples.
Canadian apples.
Canadian apples.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right?
That's very interesting.
So back from the Latin, old Jerome.
Yeah. Which, honestly, it makes sense then, I guess, for others to be drawing from stuff like that.
It does.
We get that imagery to pull out of there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, even then, it's like, it's funny because that has shaped our perspective of how artists depict the Garden of Eden in that moment, the fall, versus what the Bible actually says about it.
Right.
And it's funny because I think stuff like that, which can be beneficial, if we remember why.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also some of those things can take away from what it actually is saying.
Yeah, it's the idea.
Because I think... Oh, sorry, go for it.
No, it's just the idea that over time, if somebody uses an example, that if you get too far away from what the example was representing, then all you have left is the example.
Right.
It's like that old trope of like the lady who always cut the end off of the ham and put it in the thing, and her daughter's like, why do you cut the end off? She's like, that's how my grandmother did it.
Yeah.
And they come to find out grandma did it because that was the only size pan they had. So it was like, it had nothing to do with the recipe. It just literally didn't fit in the pan that they had.
So she just had to...
So she just cut the end of it off. And it's like, well, you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, you can change this.
Yeah. So it's like why, like knowing why you're doing something or knowing the origin of something kind of helps defeat the pop culture or the worldly example. Yeah. It helps take that definition away and bring us back to the original meaning. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that can happen is we can focus too much on the fruit.
Yeah.
And we miss where's the fruit coming from.
Yeah.
And I think that's, in my opinion, that's kind of the crux of what's important in this story.
Sure.
It's not the only thing, but I think that's like, it wasn't the fruit, but it was what was the fruit growing on.
Right.
And like that's the important thing that's kind of centered around here.
Yeah.
And I think we see that in a lot of ancient Near East. Here we go right back into that.
Well, wait, where do we see the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?
Yeah, so we see that in the midst of the garden.
Right, in the midst of the garden. So let's read that.
Yeah, actually, that's a great idea. Before we jump into these other people, let's actually read some Bible.
So in Genesis 3, you have this image of the serpent, like after the creation.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve are in the garden, and the serpent was more crafty than any other beasts of the field, right? And it goes on to say that the serpent said to the woman, "Did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden?" And the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die." But the serpent said to the woman, "You will not surely die. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and apple."
Nice.
Or evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, like a candied apple, that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves, see, Paul, fig trees.
They come back. They come back.
Sewed them together and made themselves loincloths. So, the garden is made in the midst of Eden.
Yes.
Is what we see in Genesis 2, which is interesting. So, this garden is made, and typically in the ancient world, a garden was made in the courts of the palace.
Yeah.
Or in the kingdom, there would be a garden of leisure.
Yeah.
A place to walk and talk and learn and have conversation.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Which is what we see happening in there as well.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting to point out that Eden was on a mountain as well.
Yeah, the mountain of God.
Yeah. And we see that in Ezekiel.
Right.
28.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we see a lot of significant places throughout Scripture that are in these kind of areas.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they're up on hills, they're up on mountains.
Yeah.
And it's a place where people converse.
Yeah.
It's where oftentimes it's where God interacts with his people.
Yeah, or even in the ancient cultures, it's where they would get together and discuss philosophy, or they would discuss the day, or it was a place of leisure.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily where you would go create a battle plan.
Right.
Yeah. It's more so the garden was a place where you walked and you talked and you kind of thought and discussed things, right? So that's kind of an interesting idea, is like in some ways you're in the garden, especially in ancient culture, that was kind of the place where you would exchange knowledge. Yeah. Where you would exchange thoughts. Where you would express your day. Yeah. It's kind of the cafe of today.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's an interesting way to think about it as well.
Yeah.
Because and I even think about for some reason the Vanderbilts keep popping up. This is like a modern reference.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for that, but like the Biltmore estate. Like you look at old estates that are 150 years old, different things like that, and there's gardens surrounding the whole property.
Gorgeous, just tons.
Yeah, and there's nothing to do in those gardens except walk.
Yeah.
And there's benches to stop, and then there's water, and it's a lavishness. It's a place of ease, which is what Eden was. Yeah. It was a place of abundance. It was a place of that's kind of arguably what Eden means, is that place of like leisure. It's that place of ease and peace. It's like yeah.
No, I think that it makes a lot of sense. And keep dropping my notes. Keep dropping them. Sorry, I don't even need them right now. But it's interesting because that like you said, like that's a very common theme that we see even with like groves. Like sacred groves. Yeah. And it's like, surrounded by trees, these places that are quiet in the forest. Right. Or off away from everything else. Yeah. They're isolated. Yeah. That's a very common thing. Even when we think of like the Hanging Gardens in Babylon. It's those are known for being these extravagant, just gorgeous place for you to be. Yeah. And there's a lot of lore around that too, like we talked about. There is. like a tumnus.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
like Pan is like the god of the woods.
Yeah.
And so it's like you kind of have like all these things or these fairies popping out in the gardens and like the secret garden where there's like passageways and you have all these things about gardens that's really interesting. And I think that like because Genesis moves so quickly, it's like you're kind of in the garden for a second. And then it like quickly it becomes like now we have to get out of the garden. It's like what?
I want to stay.
Yeah, I want to stay there. But
it gives us enough to let us know like, hey, this place was great.
Yeah. And I think we forget that. I think we forget to go like it's a place of tranquility. It's a place of walking with God.
Yeah.
Like it's a place of leisure. It's almost like the image we get is like God's doing work and then in the cool of the day he comes down and walks with Adam and kind of unfolds his day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so like there's a beauty to that like we need to remember about the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think it's also kind of painting because there's not a lot in there that it gives us.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us enough that like for what we need.
Right.
But there are some of those things that can cause us to be like, okay, well, what did that look like?
Sure.
You know, I think like that's for me, that's something that I question sometimes. Like, okay, so what did this place actually look like? What occupied it?
Yeah.
And especially when we come to this scene with the tree. Well, I think it's interesting, first of all, at the beginning of chapter 3, it gives us this description of the serpent. Say, you know, he's the most crafty of any beast in the field.
Right.
And then he asked Eve.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so obviously to understand what happens, we don't need to know what happened before that.
Right.
But it does make me wonder. And so, like, I'll be forthright in saying that this is definitely probably a little more speculation. Because it doesn't actually say.
Right. And
but there are things that we can pull that can lead me to a conclusion.
Sure.
It's not gospel. It's not like this is the whole cold hard facts.
Yeah.
But it's like this seems likely.
But even sitting in it for a minute, like what we're talking about, I think it's important to go like, all right, well, we just read the framework of it. Let me jump back to Genesis 2 really quick also, please. Because it does give us a little bit more about the tree itself when it says in verse 8, and the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east. So an eastern region called Eden, he planted a garden and it was in the east. And there he put the man whom he had formed. So he places man in the garden in Eden, that's in the east. And out of the ground the Lord God made to spring up every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. So telling us every tree that springs up, that God made to spring up, is pleasant to the sight and good for food, which is what Eve says. It says that, well, she doesn't say it. It says that she sees that it is pleasant to look at and that it's good for the fruit is good. Yeah. The tree of life was in the midst of the garden and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Mm-hmm. And then it goes on to talk about the rivers. But it's interesting to just stop and go like, yeah, we are going to
pause there.
We are going to like speculate a little bit about what this could be. Yeah. And talk a little bit, which we have before about like, were there other, like when it talks about beasts of the field, we often think of that as like lions and tigers and bears. And it's like, that's not exactly what it's saying in Hebrew. Right. And so like when we look back into that, we go like, all right, well, it's cool to even note like, how many times do you remember that passage, Genesis 2:8, where it's like, and it actually says, and then God made the trees to spring up, and all of them were pleasant to see, and they produced good fruit. Yeah. And you go, all right, they all were. And in the midst of those were also the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Yeah. Right? So it says that before it ever getting to chapter 3. It kind of sets it up. There's this place. Which,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's interesting even with that, and this is where I'm about to head, is like this motif of a tree. Right. And it's like, okay, so there's a couple things we can ask ourselves here. Is like, is it a tree? And I think there's actually not one answer to that. Yeah. Personally. Yeah. It's like, it could be, and it could also be something else.
So then let me ask you a question within a question.
Okay.
because I think it sounds like this is where you are wanting to go. The question that I had as I was thinking about this was, it seems like God is making everything for a purpose, that he's ordering chaos by naming things and giving them a purpose. So he's taking all of this stuff that had no purpose and giving it a purpose, creating in that way. So it seems like everything that's created is for a reason, and it's supposed to be there. It seems like the garden has a bunch of trees that are pleasant to the sight and are good for fruit, and that they're supposed to be there. So my question would be, if they weren't supposed to partake in this, why was it there? Because it wasn't like, are we supposed to believe that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was the first temptation? Was it literally just put in the garden for the purpose of temptation? Have we ever stopped to think about, why is it there in the first place? Because God's made every tree to spring up, and they were pleasant in sight, and he made the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Why are they there? Because they have purpose. So all of those trees had purpose. Those trees specifically also had a purpose.
Yeah.
They didn't just, oh, hey, what's that tree over there? They had a purpose.
Yeah.
What was the purpose?
Yeah, I think that's the question that I ask when I read this. It's like, why was it there? I think everyone's asked that to some degree.
And what was it doing?
Yeah.
What was it, what fruit was it producing?
Yeah, and so
that was necessary to creation.
I'll say, so at least for me, the one answer that I hear, that I've been told growing up, and the one that I hear from a lot of pastors, is, oh, well, it was there as because God had to create a way for people to disobey. So it's like, not that they, but it's like, not that they would, but it's like, but he needs to give them the opportunity, otherwise they don't have free will. So it's just kind of this free will decision, and he was kind of like, yeah, let me just make this so I can give them the opportunity. That's like, I'm not misrepresenting, but I'm poorly describing that opinion, and it's only because I think there's more to the story, and I think the tree, what it means there actually holds a greater purpose than just a testing for man.
Yeah, and
I think there's more to it than simply that.
Yeah.
But it's gonna take me a minute to give you that answer as normal.
Yeah, but
to be expected.
But all I wanted to say was, the reason I don't like that answer is, one, it doesn't feel like it's researched at all. Also, it's in light of chapter 3.
Yes.
The problem is before chapter,
if chapter 3 didn't exist and we never fell, the tree would still be there.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it in chapter 2 tells us that it was created it was sprung up, and it was created for a reason.
Yeah.
And it was created in that space, and it was good to the sight, and it was pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's created there. On the back end, we're not like, we go, oh, that's how humanity fell. We don't know that in Genesis 2. We don't know that until Genesis 3.
Yeah.
So that means that it wasn't for a time. It served a purpose before Genesis 3.
Yeah.
Unless the only thing it did was that told us it was there, and then Genesis 3 tells us why it's there.
Yeah. Well, the other question to that, following it along, is, okay, so did the tree disappear after man ate from it?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
And it's like, well, actually, we don't know that.
Right.
But we do know that man was locked out of the garden.
Yeah.
They were thrown out. Yeah. And it's like, so we have no access to those things anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
The things that were in there, that also being the tree of life.
Right.
So for the way that I'm leaning toward it now.
Okay.
And actually, I'm going to go about this in my very Paul way.
Do it. Take us on a journey, Paul.
I'm going to jump back into the Bible, but first, let's take a quick ancient Near East trip.
Cool.
And let's look at, okay, what did the ancient Near East believe about trees?
Yeah.
Because so I'll just start with this. So the ancient Near East, they saw trees as cosmic symbols connecting heaven and earth. So that right there is a very interesting concept,
Yeah.
which will come back later.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah. So just start off strong.
Yeah.
So the tree of knowledge we see in Genesis, the Assyrians and Babylonians depicted sacred trees in their art, often guarded by divine beings like the Apkallu, which might be a familiar term to some people, might not. They were basically like these demigod sages to them.
Yeah.
So they're also, going back to our knowledge bringer myths, they were the ones who brought the knowledge, this divine knowledge, to humans.
Yeah, they're not 100% God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we even have the goddess Asherah was often symbolized by sacred trees or wooden poles. We see that in scripture often, talking about the Asherah pole.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about the fact that like the pole that's erected for the worship to Asherah would be a wooden pole.
Yeah.
Which
is just a wooden pole.
But it's a tree.
Yeah.
It's like representing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't think about that.
And so it's like we see these motifs of what these trees represent. It's like there are sacred trees.
You know what's interesting too?
Yeah.
The altars were always done on a high place.
Yes.
So a tree erected on a mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is the tree in the garden on the mountain of God.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
It's very interesting. I mean, we even see outside of this sacredness, we see the symbolism of trees as far as like rulership.
Yeah.
We see that with David. We see it with Abraham.
Yeah.
There's a few others. I think Ezekiel talks about it as well in multiple spots. But we see like these symbols of trees representing a lot of things.
Yeah.
But one of the big things that it often comes down to is this connection between heaven and earth. This idea of knowledge that it brings.
Yeah.
And so actually I'll jump here real quick. Talking about the Apkallu.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a fun one. So they are described as winged genies.
I feel like it's even hard to say.
Or cherubim-like.
Okay.
Often portrayed in reliefs holding a bucket and cone, performing a ritual around a tree of life.
A bucket and a cone?
I'm glad you asked that.
What kind of cone?
Oh, it was funny. As I was looking into this, I saw that and I was like, I can either ignore this, but knowing me and Steven, his first question will be, what? So let's talk about that.
I actually surprised myself that was my first question.
Yeah.
But I was like, of course.
I was prepared. I was fully prepared for that.
Why a bucket and a cone?
So
also, I immediately think like a 5-gallon bucket from Lowe's and like a traffic cone, which clearly didn't exist back then. So
if
that's
it did,
not
that
what
would
it was.
be crazy.
That'd be talk about portals.
Well, so the bucket is a little bit simpler. But I'm going to start with the cone, actually, instead.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to my original plan.
Okay.
So the cone, it often referred to as like a pine cone specifically.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So used...
Only like
cones,
one person is like, oh.
like, oh, everyone else is like, okay.
What? Pine
so
cone?
like...
The annoying things?
Alvin and the Chipmunks? Or
what? No.
I don't know. That's right. They were in...
Chipmunks are like... What are those?
Acorns.
Yeah, acorns. Yeah.
I don't know why I thought
pine
chipmunks.
Trees, chipmunks, squirrels.
So why were they holding a cone, a pine cone? So pine cones were. There's another kind of cone too. I can't remember the name of it right now. Were used in rituals. Poplar cone. They were used in rituals for sprinkling holy water or sacred oil. The Egyptian staff of Osiris depicts 2 intertwining serpents rising up to meet a pine cone.
Like they're holding it?
Yeah, so like they're wrapped around the staff, and at the tip of the staff, they're kind of connecting to this pine cone at the tip of his staff.
Okay.
And so it's like...
Interesting.
This is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
So the staff's symbolic parallels... it parallels the Indian Kundalini, a spiritual energy in the body depicted as coiled serpents, rising up from the base of the spine to the third eye, or the pineal gland.
That's what the third eye is?
Yeah, in the moment of enlightenment.
Oh, I was going to try and say pineal gland.
Yeah, and that's part of it is from pine cone.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
So that's that. I was just gonna try and get there to like,
Okay.
let
Yeah,
everybody know that I know what
Like,
this
I
is
also know this.
representing. I know these things.
I know it. So essentially, it's like this is connected. It's funny that they're doing this around a tree.
It's weird that they call it the third eye.
Yes. Well, that goes further into more of the New Age practices that use
It
this
does
symbolism of a pine cone.
Right.
Because that's an. I mean, as soon as I said it, you knew where I was going.
Yes.
And because it's a symbol that's been, I mean, since the Babylonians and the Assyrians.
Yeah, which is fascinating because the pineal gland is. I want to look this up because I don't want to say this out of turn.
No. It's important. Yeah.
Yeah. So paint that image one more time.
Okay. Of so it parallels I'm just going to read it again. Let me pull it back. So this is paralleling the Egyptian staff of Osiris to the Indian Kundalini, which is a spiritual energy in the body, depicted as coiled serpents rising up from the base of the spine to the third eye, or the pineal gland, in the moment of enlightenment. And so it's this picture that we have where, and also it's like, we can just take, I feel like the symbolism kind of speaks for itself when we talk about serpents and talk about these tree-like things.
Yeah.
Or even a pine cone. It's like, what is this pine cone representing? Well, we already know that the tree, a sacred tree, is this representation of this connection between heaven and earth. And the pine cone, which the Apkallu would use around these sacred trees for their rituals, that its representation was your third eye or your spiritual energy.
Yeah. And
so it's like, okay, so that's part of this connection between heaven and earth.
So a couple of things.
Yeah.
The pine cone, or the representation of the pineal gland is interesting for a couple of things.
Yes.
One modern thing is that at the Vatican there is a massive, do you know this?
Oh, I think I do know this.
So at the Vatican, like in a central place,
I didn't even think about that.
There's a huge like statue, not a statue,
monument?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of a pine cone.
That's right. Yeah.
And the Pope has a staff. And on the top of the staff is the pine cone.
I don't think I knew that.
Yes. So that is weird. But
that's very weird.
It is weird. That's not conspiracy.
Mm-mm.
That's not speculation. Just type in Pope staff.
Yeah.
And every Pope, their staff has a pineal, like it's this cone.
Yeah.
It's the third eye, which is like, that's why the conspiracies are like, what's going on?
It's all in here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, especially for like, what was the intent to use the pine cone in this? It was to sprinkle the oil.
Yeah.
Or holy water. Now I can't remember what it's called right now. All the Catholics in here know what I'm talking about. There's a tool that they use now to sprinkle the holy water.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
And I can't remember what it's called. It's a specific tool. It's been around for a couple hundred years.
Yeah.
But up until that point, I believe that they would use some pine cone-like stuff.
That makes sense. But there's also something else that's very interesting. Aspergillum?
Yeah, that's it.
Used to sprinkle holy water is called...
It looks kind of like a mace.
An aspergillum. Yeah. Yeah, or like a brush.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. So here's the thing that's weird. And then let's keep going. But
yeah.
The pineal gland... So the main function of the pineal gland in the body... It is a cone-shaped, it's a small cone-shaped gland located in the center of the brain.
Yeah.
So the pineal gland is in the center of the brain, which is why it would get the nickname third eye.
Because oftentimes people are like, oh, your third eye is like in the center of your forehead.
Yeah.
And back.
And what you may also not know or not think about or realize is that your eyes are actually connected directly to your brain.
Yeah.
So like... Your pupil is actually a hole that goes to your brain. So your eyes are literally the portal or the gateway to your mind.
Yeah.
It's like quite literally
Weird to think about.
Yeah. So like that's why like the third eye, the center of the brain, it's the pineal gland. But it's small cone-shaped gland located in the center of the brain. Its primary function is to produce and secrete the hormone melatonin.
Oh, speaking of sleep.
Yeah. So
actually, that's even more fascinating.
You thought I was going to say something else, which is not proven. That's why I looked it up.
Yeah, I'm glad you did look that up.
Yeah. So like, yeah, it's actually a little bit more fascinating.
Yeah.
Because what it means is the pineal gland is the main function of it known is producing melatonin. Melatonin is essentially the sleep hormone.
Right.
It's the hormone that's secreted for you to be able to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Talking about going to sleep quickly.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Uh-oh.
It's interesting. But also like
got an
the
overactive
sleep,
pineal
like
gland.
the sleep state or like the things that happen when you're asleep or the other side of it's just an interesting idea. Now the speculation is, and some doctors have tried to prove this, but there's no proof of it, is that like some people believe that it's also where DMT is created. Right. So like DMT is a psychedelic that's mainly used in like ayahuasca. Yeah. But DMT is an actual hormone that's released in your brain that exists inherently in your body. And usually DMT is released at like leading up to death. Oh, okay. So that's like, I don't think I knew that. Yeah, it's like kind of a like it's a hormone that's typically only released in high doses right before you're about to die. Interesting. Which is why it's weird that like essentially what you're doing when you're taking things like ayahuasca or if you're taking DMT, then what you're doing is you're rushing hormones through your body that tells your body you're like about to die. Yeah. So what you end up doing is you end up having a near-death experience. Yeah. But not literally, because it doesn't shut your body down. Yeah, it's very interesting. Because the DMT, it doesn't actually like make your organs start to shut down. Right. It's just the hormone that's released like serotonin would be when you're happy. Yeah. So it's the hormone released when you're about to die. So but it does create this disconnect where it's like, oh, in your brain, for lack of a better word right now, it's saying, oh, my body's dying, so I have to leave. It's like anesthesia. Yeah. Well, and so what I mean, like reason I said it that way is because it's kind of this disconnection between your soul and your body. Right. Yeah. And so, like, you're taking DMT, you're manufacturing like that experience. Yeah, and so a lot of people are trying to prove that the pineal gland is also what produces DMT, but that's speculation. Yeah. But we know its main function is producing melatonin. Yeah. Which is what puts us to sleep. Yeah, that's fascinating. That alone is fascinating. It is. Yeah, I don't even need the DMT part. Like that's really interesting. Yeah. So. Well, yeah, so that's the cone. That's the cone, okay. What's the bucket? And so here's the bucket, which is actually a little bit more straightforward. Okay. But it has a really interesting bit on the end here. Got it. So the bucket is just a bucket. But it was used to hold... Do you know that? No. Talk about 90s. No, I don't know that one. Mr. Bucket, buckets of fun, Mr. Bucket. It was like this... I actually found one and bought it for my kids. But it's like this bucket with a face on it that has like a really simple wheel. You just turn it on, it starts spinning around, and then it shoots balls up out of the bucket, and it's got little hands, and you have to like try and scoop the balls up and drop it into the bucket. That's kind of awesome. And then it shoots them back out. Or no, it shoots it out of its mouth. That's what it is. Oh, interesting. And then you have to pick them up, scoop them up, put them back in the bucket. That's actually kind of fun. So the bucket. Mr. Bucket. So it held water. You almost sang Mr. Sandman. I almost did. Which melatonin. Yeah. Yeah. Appropriate. So it held water. Okay. Oil, which wouldn't be surprising because that's what the cone is dipped in. Oh yeah. Or pollen. And it's used for anointing or purifying. So it's like, oh, well that's interesting. And so the Apkallu are often depicted performing this ritual near a sacred tree, possibly a tree of life.
And this actually suggests that the ritual, the pollen, was meant to ensure divine favor, cosmic balance, and agricultural fertility.
Huh.
And so it's kind of this interesting connection that's being painted there from just that source alone.
Yeah.
And it's I guess I focused on them as well because there is a big connection. We're talking about people that lived in Canaan.
Okay.
And near that area.
Yeah.
And that's where Israel was very
I'm glad you said that because
with.
I wasn't tracking with you on that.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, so I guess that's
so
why.
So these are Canaanites.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like, oh, that's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
And their history and the Hebrew history is very similar because they're from very similar regions.
Yeah, they're also intertwined at many points.
Yes.
Even though God tells them to wipe them out.
Right.
Yeah.
And so with that, we can expect to see a lot more crossover in Old Testament writing because that's what the people were most familiar with because that was the pop culture.
Yeah. And by the time you get to the New Testament, they're mostly gone.
Yes.
Or blended into, becoming like things like Philistines.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And so...
Not things like, but people like the Philistines.
Oh,
they become these things called the Philistines.
Things? Actually, so I want to jump back really quick and bring up one other point before I dive into the question that you had asked.
Okay.
And so going back to like the Asherah in that period of time.
Okay, yeah.
So some depictions suggest divine beings like El or Baal may have been connected to trees as protectors of sacred groves.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, well, why is that interesting?
Yeah.
Glad you asked. And so for me, this is jumping now back into Bible.
Okay.
And so like I read all that only to not to say that's reality and now let's use that to inform the Bible.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, let's look at what's the world around us saying in the culture at that time.
Yeah.
And now let's see, does it help answer some of the gaps or does it help connect some of these dots for us? Things that the Bible plants for us, but we might not connect.
Sure.
And so for me, I look at Ezekiel 28:14.
Okay.
One of our favorite chapters. Naturally. And so why do I go there? It's like, well, because when it's talking about the king of Tyre, it says, you were an anointed guardian cherub.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, anointed guardian cherub, and we know that this cherub was in the garden.
Right.
He was in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah, God says that.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
It's all within 28, which we've read in the past on this podcast.
We have, for different reasons.
But many different reasons.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, so why is that interesting? It's like, well, what is he guarding?
Right.
And so for me, this is my speculation. Let's try to paint a picture with some puzzle pieces.
Oh, that's a good point, though, because he's a guardian cherub in the garden, but not after the garden.
Right.
It's not saying you were a guardian cherub at the gates of the garden.
Correct.
So there's a guardian cherub, Prince of Tyre.
Yeah.
King of Tyre, who was in the garden on the holy mountain.
Yeah. Who we know walked, as it says in the scripture, he walks amongst other sons of God in the garden.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, what are they doing in there?
And none of what we're saying right now is speculative. It's literally Ezekiel 28.
Yeah, we have an episode where we talked about that.
We did, yeah.
I don't remember which one it was, but
I don't either. But we talked about
it's in there.
The beasts of the field, essentially. Who else was in the garden?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like,
oh, was that did angels write Enoch?
No, I don't think it was that one.
Did demons write Enoch?
I don't think it was that one.
You can find it. Dear listener, you can find it.
The question may answer as that episode comes out.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to go back and look. We'll try to link it.
Sometimes the question doesn't get us all the way there.
No, it's true.
It just is a jumping point.
Well, okay, so jumping to Genesis 3 now.
Okay. Jumping back.
Okay.
From Ezekiel 28.
Let's come on all the way back from everything the journey we just took.
Okay.
And again, it's like it starts with, after a quick description of the serpent, painting him as this very crafty creature.
Yeah.
It says, then he asked Eve. And so, like the question I asked earlier, is like, okay, so what happened before that? And again, we don't know because it doesn't tell us.
Right.
But we know that there was creatures in there. There were these cherubs in the garden that were guarding something.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, according to some of these other myths and these other ancient beliefs, these divine beings were guarding trees. And these trees represented this knowledge and this connection between heaven and earth.
Oh, so it's a suggestion.
And so it's like, what I'm suggesting is, was the serpent, was he a guardian cherub that was protecting or guarding the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which would have been this bridge between heaven and earth? It would have been this knowledge that heaven had that wasn't for man.
Right.
And so he wouldn't have, potentially, if this thought is correct, he wouldn't have walked up or snuck up to Adam and Eve. And at this point, he wouldn't even be fallen.
Yeah.
He's actually where he should be. But what he shouldn't be doing now is saying, hey, don't you want to take a bite? Don't you want to learn something that you're not supposed to?
Yeah.
Because God's keeping something from you
Right.
that can elevate you to a status that you're not at currently.
Yeah.
Because isn't that what he says? He says you can be like God,
Yeah.
knowing both good and evil.
Yeah.
He's basically saying there's information here that you don't have that you could have.
Right.
So
Do you want it?
do you want it?
Yeah.
And even when he says like, oh, you're not going to die. It's like, well, and it's funny. It's like there's so many entendres that he could have been referring to when he says that. It's
I
like
know.
we don't actually know what he meant.
Yeah. And also it translates it to, and you surely will not die.
Right. Yeah.
Like he's crafty. He's suggesting you're not going to die. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of suggesting inflection, but yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, well, what does it end up leading to? Well, it leads to massive destruction.
Yeah.
And
death.
It's because, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because humanity is now engaged in this knowledge that we weren't supposed to have.
Mm-hmm.
The knowledge wasn't wrong. The knowledge wasn't evil.
Right.
But we weren't supposed to have it.
Yeah. The knowledge of it wasn't evil.
Yes.
But the knowledge was of evil.
Well, I don't even know if I'd say that even.
Okay.
I guess what I'm suggesting is it wasn't for us to know.
Right.
It doesn't mean it was good or evil.
Yeah.
It means it wasn't for us.
Yeah.
So us having it is evil.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, it's kind of interesting. So it's this image that like they were used to, Adam and Eve were used to walking in the garden, living and dwelling in the garden, and there being guardian cherub that were just in the garden, and they were guarding trees.
Yeah.
And we kind of get that a little bit from the other ancient cultures and how they look at it.
Yeah, because
right?
that's like a description that we see often.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it has to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah, so it's more like there's a discussion sparked up between Eve and one of these guardian cherub.
Yeah.
Who was craftier than all of the other beasts.
Yeah.
In the field.
Yes.
All of the other guardian cherub.
Yeah.
And other living
things that were in the garden.
Yeah, so
and he uses that craftiness to then, I mean, even if we take from one of the things I read, this is going back to the Apkallu perspective of the Babylonians, is that these rituals and these divine beings were to ensure cosmic balance.
Oh, right.
And that was one of the things. And so it's interesting, taking this perspective, we see the serpent in the garden to protect and maintain this order.
Yeah.
This protection of the tree. But instead, he chose to sin by tempting man to take part in something that was not for them. And then what's interesting, and this is, for me, I'm kind of jumping a little bit ahead here, but we'll definitely come back. But I think it's such a beautiful thing that I see out of this, is that here's this tree that represents knowledge. In knowledge that wasn't for humanity, but we take part in it, and it disrupts this balance of the cosmos.
Yeah.
We disrupt the connection between heaven and earth.
Yeah.
And so that balance is severed. But then later, I think it's interesting that we see Jesus being crucified on a tree.
On a tree.
And what does he do through his death and resurrection? He redeems that balance that had been destroyed and severed.
You know what else he does? He becomes the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to the Father.
Yeah.
So was it
Yeah.
that the tree was the way to the Father? Was it a way of moving back and forth from heaven to earth?
Yeah.
So when, like, the tree as a portal or as a bridge or as a pathway moving between heaven and earth.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up that thought, I want to throw in this Mayan myth.
Yeah, please.
Uh,
'Cause I have something to add to what you just said too.
okay. In Mayan mythology, the Yakshi, or Yaxche,
Phew.
hold a high importance because of its significance in the creation story of the Maya people. According to the Popol Vuh, an ancient Mayan scripture, the gods planted 4 ceiba trees in each corner of the world. In the east, a red ceiba; in the west, a black ceiba; in the south, a yellow ceiba; and in the north, a white ceiba, so that they could hold up the heavens. The 5th Yakshi was planted in the center of the 4 trees. Pineal gland much? So that its roots could reach Exabulba. I'm
Yeah,
not
of course.
saying any of these things wrong, correctly. And that is the underworld. And its branches reached the heavens. The 5th tree was viewed, that was in the center of the garden, as the sacred connector of the 3 realms: the underworld, the middle world, and the heavens. The world tree, as it was called, was thought to provide a channel for the souls of humans to travel into the underworld or the heavens, and was seen as sacred because it was the only way the gods had of traveling into the middle world.
Wow.
So this 5th tree in this Mayan
Yeah.
mythology was a pathway between the underworld and the heavens. And it doesn't say that humans could use it,
Yeah.
but it does say that that's where they would pass when they die.
Yeah.
But it was the only pathway for the gods to move to the middle world. So whether from the heavens or the underworld,
Yeah.
it was the only pathway, the world tree in the Mayan culture, for the gods to move into the middle world, which is the earth.
Wow.
And so, like, that's one of those things where you look at
I'm
the
actually
tree.
really happy you read that, because that's where I was going to go.
Go there.
Yeah, no, finish what you thought.
Well, it's this imagery of, like, what we've set up and what we've been talking about with mythologies and the truths of it and the things that kind of show up in other cultures that are pieces of this bigger story going on. And it's this idea that, like, maybe the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is a portal or a pathway, a place that's moving between good, the heavens, and evil, the underworld. And not necessarily that Sheol is in existence in this beginning moment. We don't necessarily know that. That would be completely speculative. But we have some indicators that maybe something like that is going on, in the sense that you have this world that was created but was formless and without. And so in that, it's like, okay, well, creation wasn't perfect.
Right.
It was created, but then it needed to be shaped.
Yeah.
And so like, maybe this tree is that movement between good and evil. So a knowledge would be the ability to move between or receive from.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Like, either receive knowledge from the heavens or the underworld.
Yeah.
Or to move between the two, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because the thing it makes me think of is when they're locked out and they have to go out, now all of a sudden they, like, the guardian cherub are now at the gate.
Yes.
And no one can enter the garden.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, well, like, what are they guarding? What are they gardening? Well, maybe what they're gardening is they're guarding the ability for the beings who sinned against God.
Yeah.
That are now they're banished.
Yeah.
To the dust of the earth, which is what God punishes the serpent.
Yeah.
That he's banished to live on his belly.
Yeah,
or
and eat the dust of the earth.
Yeah, or to be in the middle space.
Yes.
To be only on the earth.
Yeah.
So now the cherub, the guardian cherub, the ancient serpent, cannot move between realms, to use that language.
Yeah.
Now it can only stay in the middle space. It can only stay on the earth. It's stuck there, but has no dominion. It's made
Yeah.
lesser than
Yeah.
the humans who, and that's why the woman will bruise,
Mm-hmm.
right? With the
Yeah.
heel, will bruise the head of the serpent.
Yeah.
So you have this, like, all of a sudden, everybody gets punished
Yeah.
in that instance, and there's perfect judgment in that space.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, it's funny because that's exactly where I was planning on heading with this.
Oh, good.
So it was great. I was like, oh, this works out perfect. Yeah, because I think there is that. So it's like, here's this access, this portal represented as a tree of knowledge of good and evil
Yeah.
that can be this access point. And
if portal sounds bad, like most ancient cultures call it a bridge or a
Yeah.
pathway.
yeah.
Portal just feels like maybe two stranger
It's got a
things.
charge on it.
Yeah, it does.
We can call it a bridge.
Yeah, a bridge or a pathway.
That's also very Norse.
It is, yeah. That's true. Pathway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but looking at this is like,
But bridges are delicate.
they are,
Yeah.
depending on what language you speak.
That's true.
And it's not like,
Which is interesting
This-
because if a bridge is seen as feminine in some cultures, and the bridge is the tree, represented as the tree,
yeah,
that's kind of interesting.
I don't know where you're going with that one.
Well, just like Mother Nature, like that type of...
Oh, I
yeah,
see.
Yeah.
It's more of a nurturing.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Where was I going? Now I lost it.
Sorry. The movement between heaven and earth and
Oh,
being
yeah.
locked out.
Oh, that's right. You stopped me on portal. this bridge.
Yeah,
Portal. And it's like, yeah, what was man for? It's like man was created for earth. And I think that's a big thing that's hard for us to swallow sometimes. And especially when we look at this, like this new age movement that's been happening for a long time. And I haven't shared it on here before, but it's like I found myself there for a while, and now here I'm on the other side of it.
Yeah.
But is that like, it's that idea of like, let's get in touch with our spiritual side. But it's this overemphasis, and it's oftentimes, let me do it on my terms.
Yeah.
I want to be in control of it, when that's not what God created.
Right.
When he said, no, you're going to be in the garden to
Yeah.
take dominion of the earth. It's like, well, that's what we were created for. We're created for the space here on earth.
Yeah.
Now we were in a place in the Garden of Eden where we were in this in-between where we could meet with God. We could meet with these spiritual beings that were there.
Yeah.
And we had this bridge area that we were in. And that severed because we said, I want to do it on my terms.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to take and eat. Because that's what I want to do the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
And I want to step outside of my created order.
Yeah.
And we see when the serpent, when he did that, God said, okay, you can stay in this place you're not supposed to be.
Right. Yeah.
And for man, it's like, yeah, you're going to stay here.
Yeah.
But now the dominion that you have, you're losing because you're allowing it to be usurped. And that's what we've done. It's like we've these beings that have been banished to the earth. We've allowed them to usurp our power, and we see that throughout Scripture coming up and over again.
Yeah.
And this reclaiming until Christ finally comes and claims death and the earth for himself.
Yeah.
Says, this is all mine now.
Yeah. Yeah, but also like, and taking that a step further with with a little bit more visceral imagery. I'm thinking about this idea that like, because the thing is like the tree is good. We see it as good, even though it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's still seen as a good creation with purpose.
Yeah.
In Genesis 2. So what you actually have is exactly what you're talking about. It's Adam and Eve in the garden, and God comes down.
Yes.
And so from the heavens, God comes down to this middle space and meets with them.
Yeah.
What does he do? He gives them knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
He gives them pleasures. He gives them opportunities. He meets with them in peace. It's this space of discussion, and he comes down and he brings and he walks with them.
Yes.
And they say, well, we don't want to wait for the cool of the day. We want to go up whenever we want.
Yeah.
We want to be able to get that knowledge, get that access, get that opportunity whenever we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do that, because the thing I was thinking about was fruit is reminiscent of what is being produced. It's not actually, so in other words, like people don't produce like apples unless they're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like an apple has never come out of me
Yeah.
unless I like threw it up or something. But like, so if a person is producing fruit, or you could, it's a euphemism. Like if,
Yeah.
if a car produces good fruit, what does the car do? It does its purpose.
Yeah.
The car gets you from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So good fruit or fruit being produced of something is that it works in its function. So the fruit of the tree is what? The fruit of the tree is knowledge received.
Yeah.
Or knowledge transferred.
Yeah.
It's the way that knowledge comes and goes. Right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
So if what is
Yeah.
the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? It's the knowledge.
Yeah.
Coming and going.
Yeah.
It's the knowledge received from God coming through the tree. Like it's
Yeah.
potentially like the fruit itself is knowledge.
You know what's interesting, and this is, I just had this thought, even based on something you said earlier, what you just said made me think of it. When we think of the fruit, and let's take that as good and evil.
Yeah.
If it is this connector between the heavenly realm, the upper world,
Yeah.
and the underworld,
Okay.
the Sheol, it's like, well, it would be a depiction of something that is good, which is God's presence in heaven, and something that is evil, which is the realization of death in Sheol. So it's like when we look at this, it's like it would represent both if it is that bridge between both.
Yeah, because I think
So
it's a
if-
mistake to
yeah.
believe that death is created at the point of
Right.
walking out of the garden.
Yeah. And that brings up a huge heated topic, which
But not necessarily
could be,
but not necessarily death on the earth, on like maybe death on the earth is created at that point.
right.
Or it enters into the world at that point,
Yeah.
which is more biblical language.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it doesn't previously exist in the cosmic space.
Right.
So
Well, and we've got to think about that too especially when we look at Earth, and actually this goes into a bigger conversation of the universe.
yeah.
When it's like, well, what was man given dominion over? Was he given dominion over the Milky Way galaxy?
Oh, right.
No, he was given dominion over the Earth.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because the reason I say it that way is because it jumps to this like alien conversation that
Sure, yeah.
I hear people having. It's like, well, if aliens existed, then Jesus would have to die for them too. It's like, well, why would he? Because he died for, even if they are fallen, if they exist, whatever,
Yeah.
they got their own thing.
Yeah.
He chose to do that for humanity,
right.
not for everything on Earth. He didn't die for cows. You know what I mean? It's like
This is another podcast.
It is another podcast. But I guess bringing all that together, when we look at it, it's like, well, man was given dominion over the earth. So the results that happen on earth is a result of man exercising or abusing their dominion, their
Right.
authority, another way to say that. So when we chose to disobey God and decide for ourselves what is right, that was a judgment upon the earth. It was not a judgment upon everything. It was a judgment upon the earth that we were put in charge of.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think I keep jumping back to this, like, this idea that the fruit being knowledge itself, and the thing that, like, why that keeps sticking in my head is because every moment after the garden, what happens? Ziggurats are built. We're trying to become God.
We're trying to gain that access
Yeah.
to the heavens.
We're trying to become like God.
I mean, what was the Tower of Babel?
That's my point.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the whole thing, is like every other thing is like doing that, building temples, building high
true.
places. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to recreate the mountain of God, recreate the tree or the portal to be able to receive the knowledge.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to make Eden again so that we can, like, live in peace.
Yeah.
No, man is trying to create an Eden again, a garden again, in order to reopen the portal to the knowledge that we desire.
Yeah.
To be able to do what Eve did.
Yeah.
and go,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to take that fruit because
I want it.
it's accessible.
Yeah.
And the guardian cherub is not doing his job.
Right.
He's giving me access to what I shouldn't have access to.
When you think about that, for the motivation of it is, wouldn't they want to go back?
Yeah.
They're not allowed to be there anymore.
Right.
And so they are desperately like, we want to get back
Yeah.
to what we knew. And so we can use you to help us get there.
But also all those cherubim,
Yeah.
and this is complete speculation, potentially like Adam and Eve go to sleep at night and they go up to their homes in the heavens.
Yeah.
Like there's a movement between.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And as soon as that's cut off, those cherubim can't do that anymore.
Right.
So they're stuck on the earth.
Yeah. And they don't want to be here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So like that's where you get all this weird stuff happening a
Yeah.
few chapters later. But like it's just an interesting thought, I think, that like when you look at the rest of scripture and what humanity is trying to do, it's like
Yeah.
we're all just trying to recreate the holy mountain, not to recreate the garden, but
Yeah.
to try and get the knowledge,
Yeah.
to try and go back and do what Eve did.
Yeah.
And do it as quick. And that's where it's like,
And I think
that's
it's
where
funny.
God is like,
Yeah.
oh, like, was it not enough for you to wait
Yeah.
for me to come down in the cool of day
Yeah.
and to walk with you and give you the knowledge that I wanted to give you and give it to you in the timing that I wanted to
Yeah.
give it to you? Give it to you when you were supposed to have it.
Even it makes me think of Moses and Mount Sinai.
Yeah,
It's like, well, that's the moment where God called them up to the mountain.
right.
He says, no, you didn't decide to come up here and get the law.
Yeah,
I told you to come up here and receive the law.
yeah,
And then we look at that, it's like, well, it took a long time. He was up
Right.
there for 40 days.
yeah,
And there's speculation of what he was even doing up there.
yeah,
But it's like, even the people that were waiting were like, too long.
yeah,
I'm going to go back to what I knew before.
yeah,
And it's like, yeah, because they didn't want to wait. They didn't want to be patient on what the Lord had for them.
right. And
Because it
what,
wasn't happening in the time they wanted it to happen.
and what were they doing? When they worshipped God,
Yeah.
they received something from God.
Yeah.
So they said, hey, make us, not other gods, but make us the God who brought us out of Israel, or out of Egypt, because we want something from him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they wanted that knowledge. They wanted whatever they needed in that moment, whenever
Yeah.
they wanted it.
Yes.
They weren't willing to wait.
And God was like, no, it's not time yet.
Yeah, so in a lot of ways, that's exactly what's happening in the garden, potentially,
Yeah.
is that what Eve is doing is being enticed to reach for the knowledge that she's aware of,
Yeah.
and she's aware it exists and knows what this tree does.
And I think that's the thing. It's like, we can't assume that they're ignorant to what this is and what it represents, because she tells him
yeah,
when he asks. He's like, this is what it is.
yeah,
She's got her own flair to it.
yeah.
But,
That's
you know what I
true.
mean? But it's like, but she knows what it is.
Yeah. It's not like, yeah. So it's interesting because all of what we're talking about is not necessarily directly in Scripture,
Right.
but it helps looking at other myths of the time period and later that kind of speak to that. Because what we do know and what we do believe is that there are other lowercase g gods, spiritual beings on the earth who have influenced other cultures and developed what we would look at as pagan practices, and there was an exchange there of knowledge through those pagan practices, and that's what we see all over the earth. And those pagan practices and the knowledge they were receiving, they didn't make it up. This is the deception. This is an imitation, or it's knowledge that was meant for good, turning towards evil and taking from humanity by the lowercase g gods, the Ben Elohim, in order to indulge that those lower g gods could indulge on the same way that the cherubim was trying to entice Eve.
Yeah.
And even though Eve thought she gained something, it came at a cost.
Yeah.
Just like all pagan worship
Absolutely.
does.
Yeah, and I think even to go back on that of like this episode as a whole, it's like, yeah, it is definitely in the more speculative realm, which we've been out front about.
Yeah.
And very honest about.
Yeah.
But I think it is important, especially to what you said, is that it's kind of, here's what's happening in the world.
Right.
And the Bible is responding to that.
Yeah.
It's using those motifs, those symbols, in how it's writing to write, no, this is the truth.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's surprising that we see these nods
Right.
to a serpent and sacred trees,
Yeah.
and even a tree of life, because like these are all common things where people believed these myths. People had these myths.
Yeah.
About these supernatural beings and what they did.
Yeah.
And the Bible is saying, okay, yeah, this is what you believe. Now let me take that and let me add the correction to it.
Yeah.
And be like, yeah, but
Right.
also this.
Well, because it's the knowledge that we were supposed to get in purity
Yeah.
was severed after Adam and Eve did this.
Yes.
So now the knowledge disseminated out throughout the earth is
Mhm.
false knowledge.
Yeah.
So the Bible is God coming back and going, okay, I let this go for a while.
Yeah.
Now that there are righteous people who are seeking me, I'm going to set it right.
Mm-hmm.
Not I'm going to give you
Yeah.
new information.
No, I'm gonna correct it.
I'm going to correct it.
Yeah.
I'm going to take what you guys know already
Yeah.
and I'm going to correct it. They say it's this, I say it's that.
Yeah.
It goes back to like, who do they say the Son of Man is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, they say that, but who do you say?
Yeah.
And by the power of the Holy Spirit, Jesus the Christ,
Yeah, and I think that there's so many examples of that. The one I think of right now is like the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, they didn't know before. It's like, what do you mean they didn't know before? It's like
Right.
they didn't have it written down before.
Yeah.
But I think for us to assume that this law, these 10 Commandments, were just an epiphany randomly one day where everyone's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, the example I bring up, I'm thinking of right now is like the Code of Hammurabi, which is older
right.
than the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of parallels there. It's like, well, I don't think we should be surprised to see that,
Right.
because the people knew what God required,
Yeah.
and the gods altered that to their own devices
Yeah. To benefit them.
to benefit themselves.
Right.
And then God said, okay, these are my people, and I'm gonna set the record straight.
Yeah.
This is my command.
Yeah. It's God taking the formless
Yeah.
world and breathing life into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it becomes formless again and it breathes life into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the story when we see this order and chaos. God takes chaos and makes order,
Yeah.
and then we make it chaos again.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, order.
Yeah.
And then we mess it up, and then he fixes it. We mess it up, and he fixes it.
Yeah. And the mistake.
Until finally Jesus himself came down and said, let me fix it once and for all.
Yes. And that's the difference, because the mistake in the New Age would be like, well, it sounds like what you're trying to express in the garden is this yin and yang of this. Well,
this balance here.
I can see why you would get that.
Yeah.
And I can see why the darkness would want you to think that the dark is as important as the light.
Right.
But that's just a deception.
It is.
Because the Lord tells us that heaven and earth will pass away. Hey, this isn't going to go back and forth. It's moving in one direction. This deception and all of this stuff, it will be judged.
Yeah.
And it will be gone.
Yeah.
And then there will be no yin and yang. There will only be light.
Yeah. I mean, even look at the examples of even God himself,
Yeah.
where no one can look at the face of God and live.
Right.
And it's like, because chaos cannot exist in the presence of God. He has no tolerance for chaos.
Right.
And so he's like, no, I require order.
Yeah, yeah.
And there will be order.
Yeah. So, are trees portals?
Maybe.
Kind of seems like it.
Possibly.
Kind of seems like they were used that way. Or represented that way.
It seems like.
I'll say this. I think people like to use trees as imagery for portals.
Yeah.
Or gateways.
Yeah.
Trees are gateways.
Gateways.
It is interesting though that
Trees are the gateway drug.
when Jesus dies on the cross, like you were saying, he's on the tree
Yeah.
and he goes into the underworld
Yeah.
and he takes the keys back and then he comes back up into the middle
Yeah.
and then he ascends into heaven.
It's amazing.
So he came down from the heavens,
Yeah.
became a man on the earth, and died on the earth in order to go into the underworld,
Through a portal.
which was on the earth.
Yes.
Because he didn't go from the heavens to the underworld.
It was a tree on a mountain
Yes.
on the earth in the middle world,
Yes.
to use that language.
And he moved from the heavens to the underworld
Yeah.
through the middle space, through a tree,
Yeah.
and then came back out into the middle space,
Yeah.
and then ascended into heaven.
Yeah. And what did he do because of that? He created balance. And that balance is, like you said, not a yin and yang. It's order.
Right. He also ascends on the Mount of Olives.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
he will return on the Mount of Olives.
That's so cool.
So did he open the portal back up? He did. We can say that confidently.
Yeah.
He did open the portal back up, but the only way through it is through him.
Yeah.
So
Which is what he tells us.
there's no cherubim guarding it.
Mm-mm.
It's just him.
Yeah.
So you gotta like, and he's not gonna throw some fruit your way. I mean, technically that's what the Bible is. He threw some fruit
Yeah.
towards us.
Well, even you think about the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, that's pretty big fruit.
That's some big fruit.
Yeah. That's like a whole watermelon. Which that's what my dad always said. If you eat the seeds of a watermelon, it'll grow inside of you.
Which is true.
Yeah. Well, that's for you to decide.
Don't look that up.
So are
Just
trees
believe it.
portals?
Yeah?
You decide.
Question mark?
3, 2, 1.